Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Tuesday, 18 November. Yep, that's what day it is. I'm your host, Daniel, and today we're going to talk about North Korea has denounced the nuclear agreement between the South Korea and the US. Trump has expressed openness to talks with Venezuela's Maduro, and Moscow has slammed the warmongering rhetoric by Germany's defense minister. So firstly, North Korea said on Tuesday that the agreement between South Korea and the United States to build atomic-powered submarines would cause a nuclear domino effect. All right, mate. Last week, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung announced that a security and trade agreement with Washington includes proposals to push on with developing nuclear-powered vessels. Seoul said that it acquired support for expanding our authority over uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing. So what? I mean, I don't think this is as big a deal as North Korea is making out to be. While nuclear-powered submarines are very high-tech and very effective weapons, vehicles, in this day and age, it doesn't necessarily change much in the relationship between the North and South. North Korea almost certainly has nuclear weapons and has the capability to fire a nuclear weapon at South Korea. So I don't understand why they think that this would be a massive game changer. South Korea could be trying to get a nuclear weapon themselves, which would be a game changer for the entire region. But yeah, I think there's a bit of an overblown pushback by North Korea, but it's also unsurprising because, North Korea is always going to kick up a fuss every time something in South Korea changes. That's just the way they do things. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're just being a bit stupid here, but I don't see the end game and why they're kicking up such a stink. It's just par for the course at this point. Yeah. And next, US President Donald Trump said on Monday that he is willing to talk to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, but he did not rule out deploying American troops to Venezuela. Oh, fucking hell. At a certain period of time, I'll be talking to him, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. When he asked if he would rule out sending troops into Venezuela, Trump said, "No, I don't rule that out. I don't rule out anything." Fucking hell. We have to take care of Venezuela, he added. They dumped hundreds of thousands of people into our countries from prisons. A few hours later, Maduro, speaking on his weekly television show, said that he was ready to talk face-to-face with Trump. He also added that this country will continue to be at peace and that in the United States, anyone who wants to talk to Venezuela will talk face-to-face without any problems. So what? It seems like a bit of a softening of Trump's rhetoric on Venezuela. Opening up the room for dialogue with Maduro is an interesting turn and kind of, to me, indicates that Trump may be a bit more hesitant to conduct military action than he has been in the past. So maybe he's had a significant amount of pushback within his own party around what he's been up to and what's going on, as well as, allies being very clear that they're not really happy with the strikes that have been conducted against drug boats in the Caribbean. It's an interesting tact. What he hopes to get out of these talks, I don't see, because it's highly unlikely that Maduro will just agree to step down and give up control of Venezuela in any kind of talks or negotiations. So, and that's ultimately, almost certainly, Trump's endgame. And Maduro's endgame is for that not to happen. So there's a bit of an impasse there. Unless, Trump is going to straight up threaten Maduro to his face and say, if you don't give up the country and leave, then we're coming in and we're taking over, which would be wild, to be completely honest. There's other reporting that indicated Maduro has already offered the US, through back channels, access to large amounts of oil reserves, which, was one thing that people pointed at of what the US might be trying to get after, but it doesn't seem to be so. This whole rhetoric around him sending thousands of people from their prisons, I haven't seen any other reporting that would substantiate that, so I don't really know. It seems possible, but also unlikely. And lastly, Moscow has described recent warnings from German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius that Russia could attack a NATO member in the near future as warmongering rhetoric. There are no supporters of any kind of confrontation in Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Monday in comments carried out by the Russian state news agency TASS. Pistorius, the German defense minister, added in an interview in the daily Frankfurter something else in German newspaper that I can't pronounce, that Russia could carry out an attack on NATO member state in 2029 or even earlier. The Russian Foreign Ministry also rejected these statements and said they are not the aggressor. Moscow has often claimed in its turn that NATO is preparing to go to war against Russia. So what? It's pretty standard rhetoric at this point. The German defense minister kind of needs to paint Russia as the enemy to justify spending more money on defense, which is fair. It's possible that after this war in Ukraine ends, depending on how it ends, that Russia could conduct an attack against NATO. However, looking at how their military has performed in Ukraine and how depleted they likely will be in terms of equipment and manpower, this seems unlikely to me. NATO is an extremely large organization with an extremely large military and much more ability to produce high-tech military equipment at scale than Russia does. And they're only improving. So, yeah. However, the best way to ensure that this war doesn't happen is to ensure that NATO is extremely well defended. So I can kind of see why he's saying this. Yeah, this is just pretty standard rhetoric. Comical for Russia to try and state they aren't the aggressor while they are currently in Ukraine being the aggressor, but I guess that's just par for the course at this point, in the most ridiculous sense of the world. Anyway, that's been your Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you!